What is far deadlier than most people realize? Serious. Grapefruit in combination with many prescription drugs. Basically, grapefruit can affect the way your medications work. With some meds, adding grapefruit screws up the way your body metabolizes the drug, so you end up with far more than the prescribed dosage. It can also work in the opposite way with other drugs, leaving you with less than the prescribed dosage. This is especially bad if you have high blood pressure or arrhythmia. Trucker here. I've had 2 blood clots in my legs from driving long distances and having my leg pressed against the corner of the seat for hours on end. One almost killed me. Apparently it's very common with truckers. You're supposed to stop and walk around every hour and a half to keep things circulating, which almost nobody does due to time constraints. The same thing happens in gaming chairs apparently. People forget to move their legs because they are so focused on the game. You don't need to worry so much if you're younger. But if you're a gamer who's a little older, please be aware. Deep vein thrombosis, DVT, is a well-documented effect of long-haul flights too, which is why pilots who fly long-haul and ultra-long-haul flights lasting more than 10 hours wear pressure socks. Passengers are advised to walk around the cabin once every few hours, with flights lasting up to 18 hours. This is a necessity. Get the blood moving. If any of these clots somehow dislodge and reach your heart, it is goodbye. Testicular torsion. Don't be embarrassed to ask for help. In all honesty, the embarrassment is all in your head. Doctors and nurses really don't give a fuck. They really don't care and aren't judging you one bit. They have seen everything and then some more. But they will judge you if you make the foolish decision not to seek help cause of made up embarrassment and lose your balls. The pain might not be severe, but you have a few hours tops before your balls die. I had emergency surgery to fix testicular torsion. I went to the ER because my right ball was very tender and painful to touch, and they ordered an ultrasound to confirm it was twisted. When the doctor returned he said I was being booked in for surgery that day, otherwise I'd lose it. Went in at 10 AM and left at 6 PM with a stitched up sack. Wasn't very fun. Quit drinking. Been an EMT for a while and work with a lot of the homeless population. Will get calls for people who decided today is a day to finally quit drinking and do it cold turkey. As soon as the next morning people can present with delirium tremens. Severe withdrawals can induce seizures and can also lead to death. A lot of these people will think because they quit hard drugs like heroin or meth, cold turkey alcohol would be the same without knowing the major effects it can have on your health. Edit. Guess I should add this is only for people with alcohol dependency and not all your casual or even heavier drinkers. A Brazilian butt lift, barrels, gives people a figure reminiscent of the Kardashians and is hugely popular for getting that Instagram body. But a paper in the Aesthetic Surgery Journal found that 1 in 3,000 BBLs resulted in death, making it the world's most dangerous cosmetic procedure. Don't Google botched Brazilian butt lifts or a woman walking on the street with a botched butt lift and it looked like she had bowling balls in her back pockets hanging down her legs. Where's https n wikipedia.org/wiki/weir. It's amazing how many people play around them or swim just upstream of them. Almost no one knows the bottom of them is a death trap of rotating undercurrent and almost no one knows how to escape one. If you do get stuck in it, even if you do know how to get out, you'll have a hell of a time of it. If a kid gets stuck in one, they're as good as dead, as is anyone who goes in to save them. Very few actually have warnings around them. If you unluckily get trapped in one, try to swim down to the bottom and swim/claw your way downstream along the bottom a ways and then swim up to the surface. Got caught in one as a preteen. I was downstream of it where the water was only about 5 feet deep and decided to walk up to it and climb it. Once I got close, my footing just dropped out from under me because it had eroded to be about 6 to 8 feet deep there, and I got tumbled underwater until I managed to kick off the bottom of the damn thing far enough towards where the water would push me downstream instead of sucking me back in. I remember coughing up some water and throwing up some water in the shallows below it and being near too exhausted to drag myself to shore. I still can't believe they don't post more warnings or rope these death traps off. Fuck teaching children about quicksand. Teach kids about these forms of population control littering rivers and streams. Oh yeah. This was an incredibly small one too. If it had been any deeper or bigger I definitely would died. Is quicksand even that dangerous? It can be pretty viable, and I've never seen enough of it to actually trap a person. Get the UTI handled, or get a nasty kidney infection. UTIs can also cause neurological symptoms, which is a fun bonus. My mom was in the hospital for a week because of this. She was mostly just loopy, asking the same question 3 times in 5 minutes. Then it got interesting with UFOs and impossible human visitors. Even saw eyes on horseback riding through the sky. Sounds like she hallucinated the wild hunt. Essential oils. Do not put them in your food. They are not made to be food safe. Some of them are capable of burning a hole in your esophagus. Why people think they're food safe I'll never know. They, shady MLMs, also recommend using the oils on babies and children. They can cause chemical burns. Heard about one story where a newborn baby had to be on fourths, but the mom was obsessed with essential oils. So she snuck in and rubbed some on her baby, which then got into the fourth wounds. Holding your breath while scuba diving. To most people who don't scuba dive it may sound harmless, but if you hold your breath and ascend even a little over a meter you can suffer major lung damage as a result of the gas in your lungs expanding from the lessening pressure. When I was training to dive my instructor took a gallon milk jug down with us, and he filled it half full with air and brought it upwards, explaining what he would do before we went down. It didn't take long before it filled completely with air and blew the cap off as we were going up. When we got to the surface, he said imagine that was your lungs. Apostrophe. Smoke. It's not only the fire that can kill you. And there is a very good reason you're taught to stay low escaping a fire. The smoke is a hot gas layer that can melt your face off. And that's forgetting the lung damage that it can do. I survived a house fire when I was 12. 25 years later I still have to explain the scarring on my lungs when I have a chest x-ray. I have also developed a long-term respiratory illness. I don't really complain, though, since if my dad had woken up 5 minutes later we would all have died. Going for runs on the roads at night without wearing lights or reflectors. Oftentimes people even wear black. They think that just because they can see the car, that the car can see them. It only takes one accident to change someone's life completely. Touching shit inside a guitar amp can F you up really bad. It holds a charge, and it all comes out at once if you touch the wrong spot. Anything with big capacitors follows this rule. That includes anything with an AC power supply. Engulfment and confined spaces. With confined spaces, people usually don't realize that O2 runs out rather quickly. Engulfment because people probably don't think about essentially drowning in non-liquids. Flowing solid materials don't even have to cover your nose to asphyxiate you. Anything above belly button level will slowly constrict your diaphragm each time you breathe out. Just like a boa constrictor. I fell into a deflashing vat of shirt buttons once when I was about 13 years old. My dad was the plant manager of a shirt button factory in Knoxville, Tennessee back in the early 1980s. He and I were there on a Saturday morning. He was doing paperwork, and I was exploring the plant. Got to the section where the deflashing tanks were, and tried to lean over and scoop up a handful of buttons. Lost my balance and fell in. It was about 5 to 6 feet deep, but filled with plastic shirt buttons. I went all the way to the bottom. I was able to stand up and stand on the top of the mixing blades that were turned off. Took forever to get out. The buttons like squeezed me as I tried to move. Scariest moment of my life. I don't even let my kids do the whole bury me in sand at the beach thing. Terrible memories of that. I know of a dude who was being buried in sand at the beach by his family and died when the rocky layer underneath the sand shifted, opening a void into which he was sucked. Scary shit. Hey, thanks for the brand new nightmare. Throwing a single punch. Here in Australia it's been criminalized because fights in pubs and clubs are pretty common. The single punch isn't what causes injury, but falling to the ground and hitting their head on the curb can kill. Especially since drunk people usually don't have the capacity to soften their fall. Think twice before you risk losing/taking a life over losing your pride for a night. Visine. People seem to have this idea that a few drops of Visine in someone's drink will give them diarrhea, and do it to prank each other. or get some sort of satisfaction with petty revenge. People are sitting in prison for murder for doing this. The main active ingredient is called tetrahydrozoline. Once it enters your gastrointestinal tract, it can be absorbed by your intestines and end up in your blood, causing your blood pressure and heart rates to drop to potentially life-threatening levels. It really makes me wonder how many people have died due to people copycatting. That scene in Wedding Crashers. In high school, a kid that I knew, not really a good friend, but same social circle, gave me a Gatorade and told me I could have it because he didn't like the flavor. I split it with my friend and we happily drank it all down. The next period some of my classmates were acting real weird and kept asking how we felt. Eventually one of them told us that he had put a ton of Visine in the bottle. We go to the nurse expecting to be sick, but then she looked up the ingredients and effects and yup, it can kill you. Both of us that had drank it ended up in the hospital with extreme lethargy and trouble breathing. I ended up sleeping for about 16 hours straight. I obviously didn't want my friend to get hurt too, but in a way it was a blessing, as if I had drank the whole thing myself I could have easily died. What happened to the person who put it in the Gatorade? He got pulled out of class in handcuffs and suspended for 2 weeks. Could have pressed charges, but decided not to as he obviously didn't know how dangerous it was. Poisoning is a felony, and it didn't feel right to ruin his life permanently, even though he was being a shithead. Posted safety precautions. When there are signs saying something, lots ignore thinking they know better. I used to work it for a place that makes big tractors. Different stations are restricted from using certain PPE. One day this lady was wearing the wrong gloves. Her station is only supposed to use latex. She didn't take that seriously and wore thicker reinforced gloves. She was using the lug nut machine that tightens 12 giant lugs at once. Her glove got caught, and instead of ripping the fingertip off of her latex glove it ripped her thumb right the F off her hand. I witnessed it, and her mistake haunts me to this day. They had to restrain her, while 2 men held her hand up in the air away from her. Her wails and screams were terrifying, all because she ignored a well-placed warning. If there's a warning sign posted I usually assume it's because someone already effed up and had that exact thing happen to them. Safety rules are always written in blood. Oleander, Nerium, in fact. It's one of the most common ornamental plants in Southern California. Planted in people's backyards and along freeways. The only problem is it's one of the most poisonous plants in the world. Toxic compounds include nereicide, alendroside, and saponins. My mother's friend was trying to sell her a face cream called Nerium. My mom took one look at the ingredients and told the lady she was an idiot. Of course Nerium fills in your wrinkles. Your face is swelling from an allergic reaction. What in the ever-loving world? Good grief. Eating a slug. Obviously it's nasty, but kids do stupid shit as dares or even in hazing rituals. Slugs contain parasites that will get into your brain and fucking kill you slowly. I just read a whole article about rat lungworm and snails and slugs that is haunting me. Watch the series Monsters Inside Me that will make you paranoid. Abscess teeth can kill you. I had an abscess at 21 that I didn't get treated until I was 28 due to a fear of the dentist. By that point it was a root canal and an extraction and I now have a section of my jaw missing. Get it early and avoid this shit. Oh my god, this makes me even more terrified to have my shit sorted. Edit. Can't afford the dentist anyway. In Canada. I feel so bad for you. Folks. Don't be. I didn't go for 10 years and had a part of my tooth broke off, and while I did need some work done and it cost some money, but it's never too late to go. Things will only get worse, so you'll never regret going once you get on a regular schedule again. Plus I spread out my visits, so I didn't just do everything all at once. Dentists and hygienists are used to people letting it go for a long time. They are just happy you're in there to get it taken care of, no matter how long. Acetaminophen. It's rough on your liver in large doses. I know a lot of people who ignore the recommended dose and pop them like they are Skittles for pain. This is incredibly dangerous. https://medlineopolis.gov/nc/article/002598. HTM. My pharmacy prof in med school mused that if acetaminophen hit the market today it would be a prescription drug for this reason. Tylenol. It's actually a lot easier to overdose on than most people realize. And it slowly destroys your liver over a period of days. Not a fun way to die, to put it lightly. For all you high functioning alcoholics out there, just avoid Tylenol. Real black licorice root extract contains the natural sweetener glycyrrhizin, which is over 50 times sweeter than sucrose. This ingredient has various pharmaceutical properties. It acts as an expectorant, facilitating removal of mucus from the lungs by coughing, and it increases blood pressure. The latter effect can become significant with a daily consumption of 50 g or more of licorice candy for as little as 2 weeks. Glycyrrhizin can cause potassium levels in the body to fall, triggering abnormal heart rhythms, as well as high blood pressure, edema, swelling, lethargy, and congestive heart failure in some people. I always loved going to Europe as a kid and finding the licorice candies with the may cause hypertension warning labels on them. Felt dangerous eating them. Haha. Denmark had these licorice sticks with a salty blue crystalline substance inside. I believe it was taken off the market by the mid 1990s. That stuff was good. Infections can still F you up easily if you don't seek medication attention in time. Just want to throw a story out here. I'm a dentist. I have a colleague who had a patient that needed a root canal. The patient put it off. He had a vacation coming up. He was going to Alaska in bush country to go hunting by himself. Now Alaska bush country means you are alone. He was dropped off and his ride wasn't going to come back to pick him up for a week or two. Well, after his ride left, the tooth he needed to get his root canal on blew up, had severe pain, and was all alone, no one to help him in the middle of nowhere. This was mid to late 90s, so no cell phone either. Well, his ride came back to pick him up. Finds a dead body. The guy killed himself. He couldn't take the pain anymore. Pain was so bad he couldn't wait the 1 or 2 weeks for his ride to come back. Shot himself, left a suicide note telling his story. Moral of the story: don't put this shit off. There is no pain like tooth pain. On my way to brush my teeth. Doing cocaine on birth control pills. Seen 20 somethings wind up with strokes and EVTs. Ditto with Viagra and poppers. Rusty sharp objects. Ugly, scaring, and the best kind of blood poisoner you can have. When my son was 10, he went on a summer camp. Stepped on a nail that went straight through his shoe. Didn't tell camp leaders. So no disinfection. Instead 5 more days of unwashed feet in dirty shoes/no shoes. You should have seen the bottom of his foot when he came back. I have never ever driven to the air that fast. Exploring abandoned places. When I was a kid I would do it all the time and take photos without any form of facial protection. Fast forward years later and I learn about how toxic certain molds can be. How many older buildings used materials like asbestos which can be in the air when places are left to rot, etc. At this point I just thank God I never had to deal with the aftermath of any of that. Also, to anyone who enjoys doing this, I get it. I just want to bring awareness to the fact that if you participate, a respirator and goggles should be a must. Also, as a side note, be wary of scrappers and individuals looking for a place to do drugs. Had a run-in like that during one of the last excursions I made, and it's not fun. When I was about 16 over 17, not really a child anymore, I found out about this cave relatively close to where I lived. Obviously, I got my best mate, some ropes and lights, and off we went exploring. There were thousands of bats flying close to us in the first few areas of the cave. Rabies isn't fun, or so I heard. We had no clue what the cave layout was like, and we didn't say a word to anyone about what we were doing. Luckily everything went okay, apart from a few scrapes here and there. But when I think about everything that could have gone wrong, I get a chill down my spine. Lack of sleep. Increased risk of basically everything you can think of, not to mention that accidents are far more common when you're tired. The less sleep you get, the shorter your lifespan. Fine. I'll go to bed. Shift work. The disturbance in your circadian rhythm takes years off your life. I worked a 12-hour shift work job for a year that rotated between days and nights. I call it the blackout year because it's a giant year-long hole in my memory. All I did was eat, sleep, and work. Struggled with indigestion regularly. Completely awful way to live. That should be considered a form of torture. A hangnail. Yes. Seriously. I had a hangnail once. It got infected. It became swollen and inflamed. The swelling sealed it shut. The abscess became worse. I went to urgent care. They took one look at my finger and sent me to the ER. I was becoming septic. I spent about 36 hours in the hospital, then home for 2 months of antibiotics. I could have died. Insulin. Looking at drops on a table, you can barely tell the difference between the therapeutic dose and a lethal one. As a diabetic, it's a little scary, but luckily the cure is just eating sugar, and you can feel your blood sugar dropping low long before you're in real danger of dying, unless you took some astronomical dose or something. Some patients can't feel their lows. Those people are terrifying to treat sometimes because increasing their dose could drop them and they wouldn't know. That's when I start to reach for a continuous glucose monitor, but those can be expensive sadly. My cousin just died from this. Type 1 and took care of it very well. Came home, laid on couch, and asked for blanket. Boyfriend brought blanket, and she was gone. With type 1, it can happen without a lot of warning. I've been researching a lot since this happened. So sad. Touchscreen consoles in cars. Mazda now disables touch functionality in their vehicles because they found that when drivers interact with the touchscreen, they drift the vehicle to the right, taking your eyes off the road to press 3 buttons in 3 different positions on the touchscreen, with a latency each time you press a button, because your seat heaters are literally burning your ass while trying to maintain control of the vehicle during freeway traffic is goddamn dangerous. A driving instructor once put it this way: if you're on the highway and you look away for 3 seconds, you've driven the length of an American football field without looking at the road. Medication. Those dosages on the labels are not just suggestions, y'all. Yeah, I have never really understood why people take more. There are people at my school who take over double the recommended amount because they think it will make the pain go away faster. Well, technically it will. After a few years they will no longer feel any pain. Kinda sucks tbh. Deer. Over 120 people a year die from deer directly, and another 175 to 200 from car accidents caused by deer, with some 10,000 injuries, and more deaths and injuries related to deer hunting. By the way, deer are pretty mean and terrible parents. I have seen a deer push her fawn ahead of her near the food to see if there is a predator. Then, if the fawn is okay, go out and hit the fawn to get at the food herself. Standing under waterfalls. Edit to elaborate. Loose rocks or debris from the river or stream above could fall and crush you. Great. Now I'm scared of waterfalls. Leaving potatoes for too long produces solanine gas that can kill. Would that be before or after they start sprouting little stalks? If they turn green or start to sprout, that's a sign to throw them out. WTF, I'm so scared now. My fam eats sprouted potatoes all the time. They just cut the sprouts off. It's fine if they are sprouted. If you are cutting the sprouts off, just avoid green